Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation from L3 Aviation Products on their Lynx Atsb systems, and more specifically, the LynxDirect program for experimental aircraft builders. My name is Jeff Simon. I'm president of SocialFlight and your host for today's webinar. For those of you joining us for the first time, SocialFlight's a free web and mobile app dedicated to supporting general aviation. We do that by collecting tens of thousands of aviation events and destinations, making them available on your phone, tablet, or on the web at socialflight.com. In addition, SocialFlight's new Fly to Win features give you points for your flying, you get discounts on aviation products, and we give you a chance to win in our monthly prize drawings, which have over $50,000 in prizes. So it's definitely worth your time to get the free app and play Fly to Win. Now, in addition to today's events, we also have online events. That's why we're here today. So before we get started, a few tips. A recording of today's presentation will be available on socialflight.com. We'll send you a link to that via email after the presentation. We're fortunate to have a very special presenter tonight. Mark Lindsley has been flying for over 30 years. He first soloed in a J3 Cub. His flight instructors along the way included his grandmother, his grandfather, and his dad. So I'm guessing he had to pay more than the rest of us to get his wings, but I'm guessing it's probably in different ways. Mark is an ATP, a CFI, and a designated pilot examiner. He's also the proud owner of a 55 C-170 and also a 1946 Taylorcraft. So with that, I will hand it over to Mark.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate the introduction and really want to thank you guys at SocialFlight for putting together this website and this app and providing this platform for the GA community, because if you guys haven't got a chance to log into SocialFlight, you really should and try to download the app. There's really nothing else out there doing what they're doing, and it's great to promote general aviation in our communities and in our country. And Jeff, you're right. I had to pay in other ways when it came to learning to fly. As a matter of fact, the reason my grandmother was my instructor was because my grandfather and my dad made me cry so much in the airplane when they were giving me dual. And if it weren't for her, I'm not sure I would have ever got my certificate or be working in aviation today. So you're right. And we'll just move right into our presentation after that. So we're going to talk about Lynx and ADS-B today. And one of the things we want to note is the fact that we're skipping over a lot of the basics of ADS-B, how the system works, how it's put together, the network and the ground network. And if you'd like, you can go back to YouTube and look at some of our previous webinars that we've done with SocialFlight, where we spend a little bit more time detailing that. You see right there, that's our company Baron on the left-hand side. And I want to put that picture up because the L3 sales reps, we're not only selling this equipment, demoing it, and presenting this around the country, we're flying it. And in that Baron right there, we've got ADS-B weather, we've got XM data link weather, we've got weather radar and storm scope. So we're getting a great advantage to be able to compare this stuff in flight and see what the information is providing. I also threw that picture in there on the right because my dad and I did make up, and he is actually the partner that I have in the Cessna 170 and the Taylorcraft. So yeah, don't worry there. We're on good terms now, even though he made me cry so much. Okay. A lot of people don't know who L3 is in the avionics world. We've been around for quite some time, since the 60s. We've been building standby electromechanical, standby indicators. We've been in multiple military platforms. We do flight data recorders and cockpit voice recorders, TACAN. We do solid state standbys, storm scope, you're probably familiar with, and Skywatch, and transponders and terrain awareness. That's a lot of different equipment. My point is, though, is we've been around for a while. You can see that chart from the 60s. We're not jumping into this market just because of the ADS-B market. We've been building aviation safety products for a long time, and we think this Lynx product really is state-of-the-art and kind of a capstone as we brought in multiple safety sensors into one box. So the first slide we want to talk about here is, when do I need my ADS-B completed in my aircraft? We keep saying 2020. The truth is, December 31st, 2019 is only 31 months away, and there are tens of thousands of airplanes waiting in line. We're Americans. We don't like mandates. We didn't really want to jump on board and do this right away, so the airplanes are piling up. A lot of GA pilots aren't familiar with some of the mandates that have occurred in the past. One of them, since I call a lot of avionics shops, was the TAWS mandate. That's the Terrain Awareness and Warning System mandate. 2002, about 15 years ago, the FAA said if you had a turbine-powered airplane with more than 9 seats, you had to have a TAWS system in your aircraft. I'm telling you, the avionics shops to this day have been talking about, man, the TAWS mandate years, all the airplanes that were lined up, the backlogs, the manufacturers who couldn't produce equipment. It was quite a big deal. Now you think about it, that's a small sector of aviation. So we got a big task ahead of us if we're going to get all the airplanes that need ADS-B installed with certified equipment over the next 31 months. So it's good that you're listening, because that means you're somebody out there researching this and making decisions. So with that, we're going to talk here about L3's ADS-B Solutions. L3 came up with a solution what we felt like was good for all aircraft. We had UAT solutions and 1090 solutions. The 1090 solutions are your Mode S transponders. The UAT solutions on the left, they need to be paired with a transponder. Now, I'm going to talk about each system, but I also want to talk about tactical decisions that need to be made before you enter down one of these roads here. When you're looking at a UAT solution, and I'll put in there that since the last time we talked, I did do a UAT solution in the Cessna 170. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But one of the things you need to think about right away, what's my transponder like in my airplane? Because you're going to need to pair it with an existing transponder. Now the transponder I had in my airplane was a 40-year-old Narco transponder. Keep in mind, when you use a UAT solution separate from your transponder, your transponder will probably be the weak link in this ADS-B chain because it's 40-year-old technology. So one of the things you need to think about is, what's the transponder like in my airplane? Am I confident that it's going to be operating here 10 years from now? Second thing you need to think about when you're dealing with a UAT solution is, do I have an aircraft where I can mount this device? It was really good for me to be able to go through the installation process of an NGT 2000 and see what was involved so I could relate and empathize with customers a little bit. In our Cessna 170, we didn't have an avionics bay in the back, so we had to actually use some sheet metal, get out the brake, bend a rack, Cleco and rivet it to the belly of the airplane to be able to mount this unit in the back of the aircraft. That's a little more labor than just replacing a transponder in your panel. And thirdly, you got to think about antennas. When you do a UAT solution, you will need an additional transponder antenna on the belly of the airplane, as well as a GPS antenna on the top of the aircraft. So those are some of the things you want to think about when doing a UAT solution. With that being said, we're going to go right down these product lines. When you look at the NGT 1000, that is the meet the mandate product. And I can honestly say, since I've been selling this product, I've never encouraged one aircraft operator to go down that route. And here's the reason. The FAA created this mandate. If you do the NGT 1000, you're just paying the tax. When you do an NGT 1000, it's just ADS-B out. All of our solutions here have WASH GPSs built into them. But that unit will just send out your signal. It's going to package that required information that the FAA wants with your transponder code and send it out, but you don't get anything in. The next step up is the NGT 2000. This is the one I installed in the Cessna 170. Part of the reason I did is because it was given to me by L3, which makes it a more affordable solution. I paired it with a GTX 327, like the transponder shown there, because it can digitally control my remote box, and it's a reliable, good transponder. So with that being said, the NGT 2000 is in and out. So I'm able to pick up all that FISB, that free weather and traffic from the ground stations that are currently out there and operating right now, as well as aircraft to aircraft on the UAT, the 978 megahertz band. The way I get that information into the cockpit is I Wi-Fi it. So all of our devices have Wi-Fi, and the reason we chose Wi-Fi is it transfers more data than Bluetooth. And we know that from our computers. You never go into a Starbucks and you tie into their Bluetooth. It's Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi gets you the most amount of information to your tablet. And then that's how I'm getting it on my tablet in my airplane. The next step up, the 2500, same thing. It's ADS-B in and out with Wi-Fi, but it adds a multifunction display interface. So you can hardwire it to your multifunction display. If you've got an Aspen unit, GMX 200, we'll go through the displays later. You can actually display weather or traffic or both on your multifunction display. Those are your UAT solutions. What do you got to remember? That you got to mount something in a remote location. You're going to need another transponder antenna, and you got to have a reliable transponder to make this work. The best-selling units we have are these two units on the right-hand side, and these really are state-of-the-art. They are the best-selling products in the history of our company as far as units sold right off the bat. The NGT 9000 is a dual-band transponder, meaning it is a Mode S extended squitter transponder, so meets the worldwide mandates, the DO260B mandates, but it also is a UAT receiver, so in the continental U.S., you can pick up all the free weather and traffic from the ground stations that are currently established and operating right now. The NGT 9000 is a great method to replace your legacy transponder and add a multifunction display with all the weather information and Wi-Fi, as well as hardwired to a multifunction display. The other thing that's great about the 9000, which we'll talk about in further slides, is it has an upgrade path. If you notice, there's no hard keys on this device. So it's like an iPhone. You buy it as a phone, but in the future, you keep adding apps. And as the apps come out, you add them, and you have more and more features on the device. So we'll talk about those in a few slides as well. Okay, the NGT 9000 interconnectivity. One of the things you need to think about is we are pretty much open architecture. We're looking to interface with multiple multifunction displays. We want to work with Aspen. We've got interfaces with the MX20, the GMX 200 we can display traffic and weather on. Grand Rapids Technology we can display our traffic and weather on. Garmin, the GNS GTN series will show our traffic. The Avidyne IFD 440 and 540 will show both our weather and traffic, and there will be more to come. I mean, we've been working with multifunction display manufacturers, and this information we provide free of charge just to get as much traction as we can in the multifunction display market. The other thing we look at is those GPS splitters and couplers available. We realize some airplanes, they don't want multiple antennas on board the airplane. So we have listed in our installation manual both a GPS splitter and a coupler. We don't provide them. We show you where you can get them through the vendors. However, these devices would allow you to mount one antenna on board the airplane and either split the signal or couple to the signal and use it for multiple devices in your panel. Lastly, as you look down the bottom of that slide there, we got a whole bunch of icons there. Those are the app manufacturers that we are currently operating with right now. We've got AvPlan EFB, FlightPlan Go, FlyQ, ForeFlight, Naviator, SkyRadar, and WingX Pro. So we're currently adding more to that as we speak as well, and we'll continue to do that as the program matures. Let's go to the next. When we spoke about upgrades to the 9000 or an upgrade path when you're buying this unit, this is one of the first upgrades we provided for. And everyone, just for attending this meeting today, will receive a certificate emailed to them for free ATAS. It has a value of $667. We sell that to the end users. Now, with that being said, what is ATAS? I say that term, and a lot of people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't hear the term very often. And one of the reasons we don't hear it is there's only one company on the market right now who meets the ATAS requirement that the FAA has put in place, and it's L3's NGT 9000. So we're familiar with terms like TCAS and TCAS-1 and TCAS-2. The FAA creates TSOs, basically tells us how we're going to alert people to traffic. All ATAS is ADS-B Traffic Alerting System. It's the FAA's TSO, or requirements for actually alerting traffic when it deals with ADS-B traffic. And L3 is currently the only ADS-B device out there that meets the TSO. So it provides traffic alerting at all altitudes. What I mean by that is a lot of traffic alerting systems in the past, your TAS and TCAS systems, turn off the alerting when they get to lower altitudes, like in the traffic pattern. One of the reasons they do that is because you get a lot of nuisance alerting. I've been selling TCAS systems for L3 for like the last 10 years, and you can get nuisance alerting. The algorithms and the capabilities of a device is just going to actually interrogate Mode C transponders and find a range and bearing, as great as it was, is not nearly advanced as what we have in ADS-B. ADS-B is sending a packet of information: your WAAS GPS location, your ground speed, your turn rate, your actual baro altitude and GPS altitude. And this whole package of information is being sent every second. So when an airplane receives it, two airplanes could be flying within a half a mile of each other parallel, and they would not be considered an alert situation because of the different ground speeds or the different turn rates, because the aircraft wouldn't be actually on a collision course. Where in the past with TCAS, you'd be getting traffic alerts, and thus you got a lot of nuisance alerts with TCAS and TAS systems. That's one of the advantages of ATAS. If you buy your NGT 9000, make sure you take advantage of this free of charge ATAS enablement, because it's one of the best safety features on the device. And one of the last things I'm going to remind you with here is, since I've been flying this ATAS for the last year, when you get a traffic alert from your ATAS, look up and find that airplane, because they're not nuisance alerts. It's a real possible collision course, and you need to find that aircraft and see and avoid. We're going to show you a video here. This is a recreation of an actual midair collision based on some FAA radar track data. Neither of these aircrafts in this scenario had equipment with traffic alerting systems. So what we're going to see is the FAA asked us to show what a scenario would look like if these aircraft had traffic systems. One of the things you need to remember is the controller made some mistakes. There was some wrong information given to the wrong aircraft. The other thing you need to remember is there was 9 aircraft in the pattern, but we've narrowed it down to 2, just the 2 that are concerned. The white aircraft symbol that we're looking at right now, that is a business jet approaching the airport for a right-hand pattern. He's going to be descending to about 1,500 feet off the ground. The blue airplane that is just coming into view right now is a high-wing Cessna 172. He's in closed pattern work here at this right-hand traffic patterns, doing some takeoffs and landings, touch and goes on the runway. As they approach, when you look at the Lynx screen, you see he's 400 feet below, or about the difference between a jet traffic pattern and a piston traffic pattern. And we don't get any alerts. One thing to remember is the algorithms being produced here knows that these airplanes are not on a collision course. So you're not getting a nuisance alerts that a pilot might ignore because there is no collision course between the two aircraft. Now, as we come up a little bit closer, it really gets to a chilling situation here as they continue downwind. As that jet makes a right turn on base, you'll see and hear what you would receive in a ATAS scenario.
Traffic, 3 o'clock, low, less than 1 mile, level.
Now the audio and visual don't quite match up due to the time span it takes to send these signals online. However, that would be the audio alert you would get right when you got that visual alert that you're seeing right there. The ATAS feature is alerting the pilot that the threat is imminent. And that's when you would look out to the right, find the aircraft, and then make an abrupt maneuver to avoid him. A lot of people think that ATAS is just the audio alert, but the TSO includes the visual alert as well. One of the things to remember, if you had a Lynx unit in your aircraft, you could be looking at a different page, a weather page, the transponder page, and when a traffic alert is received, a TA, it's going to automatically turn to that page to alert you both visually and audibly through your audio panel. So that was a tragic scenario, and there was casualties involved. I do feel that if they were to have traffic systems on board, they would have been able to avoid each other. And that's one of the great advantages of using this ADS-B situation. Jeff has brought up our demo unit here. In this demo, what it allows you to do, and you guys can do this as soon as you get off the line today, you could actually log on to L3 Lynx and go to our simulator. this simulator will allow you to actually test the unit so you can kind of use it before you buy it. This is the baseline system without all of the apps on there, so you get to see what comes with the baseline system. So Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and take your mouse, and we'll just assume his mouse is our finger, and we'll click on the 1200 transponder code, and we'll enter a new transponder code. And then press Done. One of the great things about the Lynx unit is this touchscreen display. It's resistive technology, which helps with false touches. You don't end up with that. It takes a little more force than your iPhone or iPad, and also you can do it with gloves. But why fly around looking at your 4 numbers that were given to you as a squawk code? The way I fly it, I immediately swipe that page to the left. And if you do that for us, Jeff, so my left page would have traffic, and then I swipe my right page once to the left for a weather page. Now if you guys look, on the bottom of the left-hand page are 2 dots. That means there's 2 pages on the left side of the multifunction display, and on the right side there's 4 pages. And you can still see your transponder code, and if you needed to go back to it, you could swipe back to the right if necessary. Let's go out on our traffic page there, Jeff, and click out till we get to a wider range and see if we can find a target. We got a target there, a TA. Let's click right on that plus 200. It tells us that he's 200 feet above us. You click on the information like Jeff did there, and we get more information on the type of airplane. This one says unknown because they haven't met the mandate yet in this scenario. If we click on another one, we get an actual N number. And that tells us it's a large single-engine airplane with a ground speed of 205 knots. You can use that, and you can continue to track them around, especially if you're flying in a busy environment and the ATC actually tells you, hey, I'd like you to keep an eye on this target. You can actually find it on your Lynx, click on it, and continue to track it to make sure you're seeing avoiding the right target. Let's move to the right display there. On the right display, what we're looking at is our graphical weather page. The graphical weather page is going to show you weather radar information. Now this is sent through the ground network system, the UAT, but you're going to get weather radar pictures. You're also going to see airmets and sigmets. They're going to be outlined. And there's little round circles here, or TFRs. You're going to get all the TFRs as well. Jeff, would you click on a TFR for us with your mouse? And then hit the information button. And up comes the TFR. It tells us when it is, where it is, what's going on. It looks like there's a sporting event going on or something like this, and they need us to avoid that airspace during this time period. That's a really great feature. You can also click right on an airport. When you click on the airport, hit the information, up comes the METAR there. And you can get the instant weather at that facility broadcasted over the ground network free of charge. So we'll go ahead and click Done there. And then we'll swipe to the next page on our right-hand multifunction display. This is our Loft page. On the Loft page, if you notice on the left-hand side it says temp. If we went over there and clicked on the temperature, it would switch it to the winds aloft. And then if you went to the right-hand side where it says flight level 030, we could go up in altitude and see what the winds aloft were at different altitudes. I love this page. En route, you can kind of get the forecasted winds aloft, where you're at, and see what might be a better altitude for you to fly as you zoom in and out and move around the country. Let's go to the last page on the multifunction display. The last page is our textual information. Now, what you see up there, if you were to click right in the airport identifier box, and we could click in there and we could put KBTL, or for Battle Creek. And we'd pull it up, and they don't have it available there, but let's go back to Grand Rapids there. And we'll click on our K Golf Romeo Romeo. And that could be listed as a favorite if you were to click on the star. Once you added it to your favorites, then you would have you would always be able to select it without entering the code any longer. And not only would you get the TAFs and the METARs, but you'd be able to get the NOTAMs as well. All of this information is being produced by the FAA and uploaded through the Atsb network. It's also, from this device, it'll be Wi-Fi to your iPad, so if you're using ForeFlight, you'd be able to pull it up on ForeFlight or Flight Plan Go. You'd also be able to hardwire this traffic information to almost all the multifunction displays out there. So really an awesome unit. And the great part about it is we kept adding features. This is the baseline we started with. And in a few slides, we're going to actually walk you through some of the new features that have come out since then, and it really makes it quite a safety sensor. So let's move on. The NGT 9000 Plus, the Active Traffic app. To me, this is the most impressive thing with this product. I told you earlier I've been selling TCAS and TCAS-1 systems for the past 10 years. And we have built a great box called the Skywatch traffic alerting system. It was about a 9-pound box, large box went in the back of the airplane, lots of bonanzas, and aircraft owners purchased this unit over the years. Avidyne came out with a great competitive box, very similar in size. About 10 years later, Garmin came out with their GTS series, another 9-pound box with a big antenna, etc. It's just what it takes to do that type of thing. I don't know how our engineers did it. Inside your Lynx transponder unit is all of the technology and hardware required to produce active traffic. Right now it's certified TAS. By the end of the year it'll be TCAS-1. So inside that transponder box is TCAS-1. Whether you want it or not, it's in there. Now if you were to look online, what's TCAS-1 running for today? Probably you'd find somewhere around $20,000 retail just to buy a TCAS-1 system. That's inside this Lynx transponder. When you get an active traffic system, you add a TCAS type antenna like we're showing there on the top of the aircraft, and then you have the best traffic system out there. The reason I say it's the best is there'll be people who don't meet the Atsb mandate, and there'll still be areas that the Atsb system, as good as it is, won't have coverage. You could have aircraft out in the middle of Montana shoot landings in their Cessna 150 that would be operating with a Mode A or Mode C transponder. Your TCAS system would be able to pick them up. Now what's going on with this is this Atsb system is receiving information from other aircraft, it's receiving information from the ground, and then you have this active traffic antenna, this TCAS antenna on top of the aircraft, interrogating targets as well. It's compiling the information and displaying the single best target for you, the best information on the display possible. This is the most comprehensive traffic system to date, all in one box, and it's very small and light. So this is the most impressive feature out there right now in the traffic world. Let's move to the next. The second app I want to show you is the Terrain app. We followed up the active traffic and TCAS version with a field upgradable ETOS. Remember earlier I told you about the TOS mandate 2002? It was a requirement for 9-seat turbine-powered airplanes for Class B TOS. And we created an option that you could download the TOS database into your device, use the WASP GPS and memory already allocated for that, and have a certified Class B TOS for your aircraft. It's a $4,000 price. A lot of people are like, well, man, that's kind of spendy because most of us don't need Class B TOS in our airplane. So we followed it up with another app. That's called Terrain Vision. Now this takes the same protocol, the same algorithms used to determine terrain in Class B TOS, but it doesn't have the Class B TOS alerting. And this is a great situational device. This is how I'm using it right now. When I take off on every flight, I swipe my Lynx transponder to the traffic page and the TOS page, and that's how the other pilots at L3 do it as well, because those are the things we're most concerned about when departing an airport or arriving at an airport. So that is an $893 upgrade that both helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft can use. And it's already in the device ready to be turned on when you want it. The last upgrade we had was StormScope. I told you earlier that we were the manufacturers of StormScope, and we built 60,000 plus StormScope units over the year. It's one of my favorite units to sell and use, and we continue to sell it even with the plethora of Atsb weather devices and data link weather devices that have come out over the last 15 years, because it provides information that nobody else has. Now these are pretty poor images, I realize that on these slides, but I wanted to include them because a couple of weeks ago I was flying to Tulsa. So if you look at that image on the left-hand side, when you look at that, you see an airplane. We're the actual white triangle. That's our WASP GPS location, and that's the graphical weather indicator. It's a great picture, and I was using the device to make sure I was circumnavigating heavy rain showers. You see the red heavy rain showers and the moderate rain showers. You also can see the SIGMETs and the AirMets and for IFR and turbulence and thunderstorm around it. This is a terrible weather day to be flying. I would not be flying on a day like today if I did not have that storm scope. I want to show you something. When I took that picture, within 3 seconds, I swiped the pages. Now if you look on the bottom of the device, you see those 6 dots because the device in the aircraft I'm flying is loaded with all the apps. One of them has a lightning bolt. So when I'm flying in that precipitation and all of a sudden I see that dot has a little lightning bolt on the bottom of it, I am alerted that I have some spheric activity, some electromagnetic activity occurring in front of me. So I swipe that page over, and then I'm looking at my storm scope page. And I apologize for the poor images, but I was in moderate turbulence and just wanted to click a couple photos with my iPhones, but I still thought it was worthwhile. When you look at that storm scope picture, it's on 200 nautical mile range. It's in cell mode. And about 100 miles out, you see a really thick concentration of strikes or a big cell. If you look back at your radar picture on the Lynx unit, man, it looks good about 100 miles out in front of me on that airplane. That's the disparity between live lightning data and data link weather. I love data link weather, whether it's coming from Atsb or the air. I love weather radar, but it's only going to show me precipitation. The reason we continue to sell storm scopes to this day is because there has not been any substitute to be able to get spheric activity in the airplane so you can see exactly what's going on. Where is the updrafts, downdrafts, where are the cumulus building, where are the mature thunderstorms raining, where are the lightning strikes, because that's where we don't want to fly. So I thought that was worthwhile to show you guys that. Let's go to the next. Now I realize we have a webinar for experimental aircraft builders, and a lot of you are out there planning to do your own installs, and that's part of the advantage of LynxDirect. LynxDirect is a program we set up that allows us to sell directly to the end user because we realize there's a lot of qualified builders out there who can install their own avionics, and it's a part of the market that we really would like to be able to support. One of the first things we did is we've decided to start providing installation training. We provide it to both our dealers and experimental aircraft builders. We do on-site training free of charge in Grand Rapids. It's going to teach you how to install it, how to operate it, test the equipment, configure it, troubleshoot it. It's hands-on. So they do talk about theory, but it's going to be hands-on installation practices in our lab, our training lab. You're going to get your technical publications. You'll get the software tools, all there, as well as real practice actually loading databases, etc. You look at the schedule on the right-hand side there. The May 23rd class is the one coming up the quickest, and there's 2 slots available. I just want to let you know there. And on the bottom of the slide there, you see William Tramper's phone number and email address, and he's the guy who's scheduling and teaching that class. So if you're at all interested in doing some training, this is a great way to do it. If you got to come up to Grand Rapids, we don't pay your way here, but the class is free. So if you're at all interested, we'll be doing it. Also, we do have another training seminar at EAA AirVenture this summer. It's a little bit smaller in scope. It's done during the day, during the show. It's not a full 2-day class, and we don't have a lab to actually work on some of the equipment. But we will have a seminar at Oshkosh as well, and that will be free of charge as well. Okay, so if you're going to be installing your own NGT 9000, one of the things you need to look at right off the bat, let's look at a high overview NGT 9000 block diagram. Now, we got blue arrows and green arrows here. The first thing to remember, the blue arrows are required. So we're going to go right down the left-hand side. You got an NGT 9000, you're going to do your own installation in your RV or whatever aircraft you're going to build. You got to have a WAAS GPS antenna mounted on top of the airplane. That's pretty known. That's a requirement. The other thing you're going to have is you're going to have an altitude encoder there. I used an ACK altitude encoder for my airplane because I thought it was a good time to upgrade from a gray code to a digital device. But the truth is we use gray code, serial, or digital. So I mean, if your Dynon or your GRT is going to be producing this altitude information for you, you can wire that directly to the unit as well. So keep that in mind. If you have that information coming from hardware on the airplane, AHARS, ADHARS, etc., you can use that and send it directly to the NGT 9000. And on the bottom of the aircraft, you will be required to have a transponder antenna because it is a transponder. And it also needs a transponder antenna to receive the UAT data coming from those ground stations below the aircraft. Lastly, of course, we got to have power to ground. We do run 14 through 28 volt range, and so you can use your system, whether it's 14 or 28 volt, it'll work, and you'll have to have that. Those are the required items. Now we're going to talk about on the block diagrams and the optional items. On the very top, we've got an audio panel. This is optional, but everyone listening here is getting an ADSB ATAS certificate. So you're going to want to be able to hear these audio alerts. So you're going to want to wire this up to ATAS. Then you'll be able to get either your active traffic or terrain alerts or any other features that come down the pipe. You're going to want to actually have those wired into your audio panel. Secondly, on the right-hand side, we see the PIM 9000. That's also optional. The PIM 9000 is your Wi-Fi device. This device connects to the back of the Lynx unit and actually broadcasts all of that FSB, TSB, weather and traffic information that the FAA is providing via Wi-Fi to your tablet. So you can be looking at it on your Android or your iPad device. That's an optional device, but it comes with every Lynx package. You'll have one in the box when you buy it, and I suggest you wire it up because then you can take full advantage of having that information on your iPad as well. Right below that, we have digital magnetic heading. That's optional. I mean, if you have your AHRS is producing, you've got a G3X or a Dynon or a GRT system that's producing that digital heading, you can wire that straight to the NGT 9000. If you don't, it's going to wait till you get a GPS ground speed, and it's going to use track to be able to orientate the airplane and the traffic targets, etc., around it. So it wouldn't work if you just fired it up on the ground without moving. It might not be able to pull up the traffic targets and orientate them while you're on the ground. Once you start moving, then it would work without digital magnetic heading. But digital magnetic heading is an option. You don't have to do it with the install, but it would make it a little bit more beneficial towards you. Then lastly, our external cockpit displays. You don't have to wire up your Lynx to an external cockpit displays. Sometimes some of the legacy displays look worse than the NGT 9000. You look at that, sometimes you think, well, man, that's a small display to be looking at weather and traffic on there. But the truth is there's more square inches of display than there are in a 430. And we know how modern display technology just continues to improve. I got my kids watching movies on my phone now. So you can really get a great picture of the weather and the traffic in your area on the display of the Lynx. But if you have other multifunction displays, it would behoove you to wire it up with the other multifunction displays so you can have that weather or traffic displayed on the other displays in your aircraft. Okay. One of the things to consider with an NGT 9000 is where you're going to mount it. If you have an airplane right now with an existing transponder, you may not want to put the 9000 in the same spot because a lot of times we stuck our transponders either on the bottom of the stack or way in the right side of the aircraft panel because we weren't concerned about using it like a multifunction display because all it showed us was 4 numbers. Well, now you got a device that's really become a multifunction device. It's a safety sensor that you want in your pilot view. Most of the NGT 9000s I see installed go at the very top of the stack. I see audio panel, and then the NGT 9000, and then the rest of the radios. So keep that in mind when you go to install your NGT 9000. Top of the stack really is the best location. The other thing you want to look at, the width of the unit is about the same as your typical transponder, your mark width radios out there. The height of the device, now this is where you want to take note. It's 0.2 inches taller. It's about 1/8 of an inch taller. So if you had a KT 76A that you had in a spot and you're going to pull it out, a lot of times that NGT 9000 will fit right in there, but every once in a while that stack is so tight that you can't quite get the 9000 to fit in there. Something to keep in mind when doing your panel, it's about 0.2 inches taller than your typical transponder. So you might need a little extra space there depending on it. The depth of the rack is about 11 inches, and I put this diagram up so you could kind of see from the back of the bezel to the back of the connector about 11 inches. That's pretty typical of your modern transponders that we have out there right now that have the WAAS GPS in them. Most of the transponders out there are about this long. So one of the things to think about when you're measuring your aircraft panel, if you're looking at some panel space issues thinking, man, I'm not sure I'm going to get 11 inches or if you're pretty close, you might want to purchase the right angle connector. That's the only option that comes when you're actually buying an NGT 9000 unit right at the back. Do you want a straight connector or a right angle connector? If you have a tight fit, you might want a right angle connector so you can route that electrical connection downward and away from the firewall or whatever obstacle you might have. Right here I have, I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, kind of hard to see sometimes, but 3 pictures here. What I want to show you is, it's on the very bottom, the actual 9000 rack coax connector. So on the bottom of that unit there, that's going to be the back of the rack. You have 2 connectors. The one on the left is your electrical connector. The one on the right is the coax connector. The coax connector is more important when you're dealing with the active traffic side. The electrical connector is where you're going to actually have all of your electrical power to ground and DCM connections to it. So let's move up to the right-hand image. I want you to look at that right-hand image where it says the view looking at the back of the unit. This is your coax connector. Now, if you were to read all those connections, if you were to look at A5 and A3, those are the coax connectors that most of you will be using. That is the one that goes to the GPS antenna and the transponder antenna. Those are required for the installation. Now, the other options left there, when you're looking there, A1, A2, and A4, those coax connectors would be if you were going to implement the active traffic version or the TCAS version we just described. So most of you will have just A5 and A3 for the coax connector on the right-hand side of the back of the rack. The last thing I wanted to show you about the electrical connector there on the top, when the wiring up the electrical connector there, all of this comes in the installation manuals for how to wire these connectors and put them together there, and they teach it thoroughly in the class as well. But I wanted to point out that little rectangular box on top of the connector about midway down the wiring harness there that's been zip tied to it. That's our DCM, or our data configuration module. Now, what that is that's included in every install kit, and you have to wire that into the connector. And the reason is it's going to store all that aircraft data. So when you load your device with your aircraft width and height and your in number and all of the other information that FAA wants to know, it's going to be stored in that DCM. So you could actually, you and your buddy could be out at the T hangar and he could pull his NGT 9000 out of his airplane and he could put it in your airplane, and the DCM would just reprogram the device and it would act just like yours in your airplane because it has your data downloaded in there. If you ever had a warranty issue, you know, it's got a 3-year warranty on this. If 2.5 years down the road something happened to your device and you send it back to the factory, we would overnight you another one. You'd slide it right back in that slot. The DCM would reprogram your device from that scenario. So that's kind of the wiring, harness, and rack side of things. So I wanted to summarize this here for you a little bit. The NGT 9000 really is the only true single box solution. And what I mean by that is, yeah, it has the ADSB in and out, and it's dual band, so it can receive both 978 and 1090. It also has a WASH GPS in the box. But it also has a display. It has a great display. You don't have to have a display in the airplane. It's using the face of the transponder as the display. And so one box does it all. You don't have to tie it to a navigator, etc. The other thing is I wanted to remind you that all of our devices have their own WASH GPS in it, no matter which device you chose. And then the touchscreen display and software, the future growth, that bullet I really wanted to talk to. I mean, the beginning of this webinar, I mentioned something about, hey, you guys really need to get out there and download the SocialFlight app, you know, on your phone or your iPads, because you'll really appreciate it, the benefit of it. But the truth is, no offense, Jeff, all of us went to the iPhone store, whatever phone store it was, and we just wanted something to make phone calls. We didn't go in and say, hey, I need this iPhone to be able to look at SocialFlight. No, we got the iPhone. And then all of a sudden we looked at all of these other applications that we had. It had a growth path available to us. So when you're looking at devices out there, one of the biggest advantages of the NGT 9000 is it has a growth path. It's going to show you more than just 4 numbers. There's not a hard key on there. It was provisioned with memory to be able to continually release new features. And we've proven it over the last couple of years as we added active traffic and terrain and obstacles and storm scope displays on the device. So that's one of the biggest features I like to talk about. When you're buying a device like this, you're buying an avenue for more functionality. You're not just buying a transponder. So take advantage, the next bullet point is take advantage of the subscription-free weather. I say this a lot, don't just pay the tax. You know, nobody likes a mandate, but this mandate is giving us an opportunity to drive so much value into our airplanes. To be able to have weather and traffic displayed free of charge on our displays, it's really unbelievable. It's a great benefit. The technology is changing like never before. We're being able to drive safety features in airplanes like we've never been able to before. So it's great. And then we also have the MFD and PFD options for integration. If you got a GRT display, or if you're looking at an Avidyne or an Aspen, we can do weather and traffic, or just traffic, depending on what display you have. And that's kind of the whole product in summary. We'll go to the next slide. I want to just tell you a little bit. If you were to purchase the LynxDirect, you can do it through a dealer. And you can also do it directly through our phone number or our email address. If you have a pen, it was on a previous slide right now, but avionics.sales@l3t.com. You could send an email there and purchase LynxDirect as well. Now what this will provide you, it's going to give you an actual software tools on a memory device, installation manuals, the installation kits, the WASP GPS antenna, and the Lynx processor. Well, the one item that you're not going to get in the kit, it'll have the Wi-Fi adapter as well. The one item you wouldn't get in the kit would be the transponder antenna. So keep that in mind. We assume that a lot of airplanes already have a transponder antenna on the aircraft. If you're building something from the ground up, you might not have that, so you'd have to purchase a transponder antenna as well. That's the LynxDirect system, and we're excited to be a part of the experimental market, and we're excited to continue to be able to support you guys with ATAS and some of these features that are going to drive safety into the cockpits.
Mark, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time today and everyone for joining us. We have a few questions to go through. Many of them got answered directly online, but we'll take a few of them and toss them out there for everybody. One of the questions that came in had to do with TFRs. We saw, obviously, in your demo about traffic alerting. Is there any alerting having to do with TFRs?
It's not an alerting feature, but you will get TFRs displayed on the screen, and you have access to actually see the textual description of the TFR while you're flying en route. So if they were to pop up a TFR and you're flying near Chicago, you would see the red circle, and you could touch on it and see the time span, etc. They're yellow circles when they are coming in the future, and they're not quite restricted yet.
Excellent. And all that data comes through directly through the ADS-B feed, correct?
Yep, that's free of charge from the FAA. They're sending it up to us consistently through the UAT ADS-B system.
Any sneak peeks of what's coming in the future, maybe airspace or the kind of alerting or things like that?
Well, the FAA has kind of hinted that they're going to add lightning information to it. They're going to have freezing precipitation to the UAT or the FISB information coming up, and we know that they're providing sneak peeks. As far as L3, my lips are sealed as far as sneak peeks to what we might be doing.
Last question I have here has to do with TIS installation itself. And so when we talk about what's required in terms of that, I didn't see that particular antenna. What's involved in the traffic antenna installation? And I know there's some challenges having to do with you have to find a null location on the aircraft, et cetera. Is that still something that'll work fine for an experimental builder?
Yes, we have installed active traffic systems on experimental aircraft. It is a larger antenna. Sometimes you need an adapter plate to be able to deal with the radius of the aircraft, and you're going to have to wire up 4 coaxes through the fuselage of the airplane. The antenna will need to be on the top, but the good thing is we're able to provide TCAS-1 alerting with a single antenna, which not very many vendors can do. Sometimes it requires 2 large antennas, but we're able to do it with 1 antenna. It will probably need to be on the top of the aircraft. A field service, they do a little bit more hand-holding, our field service engineers, when it comes to active traffic antenna placement, and they would walk an experimental aircraft owner through the type of airframe they are and the antenna locations on the aircraft to come up with the most ideal location for that active traffic antenna.
Okay, and the last question I just saw come in had to do with Avidyne and as a partner, and I think if you've got 10.2 over on the Avidyne IFD 540 or 440 that will link up today, is that correct?
You answered it, Jeff. You're exactly right. The original 540s and 440s would not do it, but if you got 10.2 software, both weather and traffic will display on your 540 and 440s.
And how about apps that link through for the Wi-Fi?
The apps that we have will be ForeFlight, WingX Pro. Those are the common ones that we have a lot of people interested in. We also have FlyQ, EFB, Aviator.
Okay, and that basically is
iFly
the same
GPS. Yeah.
And that basically sends out the same traffic and weather, but of course it's going to be displayed however that software chooses to display it.
Exactly. The app developer would make the choices and design the software to display the weather and traffic the way they want to.
Last question. I know I've been saying that over and over. We'll keep getting some good ones, and that is, do you happen to know about whether it's 429 that uses that as a channel and as a protocol for the data that's coming through to like IFDs and other
so we're using ARINC 429, RS-232, and RS-422 to supply data to multifunction displays.
And are those separate options, or you have to use more than one?
It's separate options depending on the multifunction display that you're interfacing with. I couldn't tell you exactly what, which display is taking traffic on which bus, but we've made the device be able to broadcast via multiple buses to multiple displays, and that we're doing it through those 3 buses right there, ARINC 429, 422, and RS-232.
Excellent. Well, listen, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. This is incredibly informative. It's been really informative for myself, and I'm sure for everybody else who joined us. And so we certainly appreciate Mark Lindsley and L3 for taking the time to do this. We appreciate all of you for also joining us. To see more L3 events, webinars, other activities happening, and even promotions that happen, please make sure to go to the App Store or to SocialFlight.com. Works on Android, it works on Apple devices, and it's a great way for free to stay on top of things, get more reasons to fly, and connect with webinars just like we have today. So again, thank you all very much, and have a wonderful day. Blue skies. Bye.
Thank you, Jeff.